First of all, wow, thank you so much, everyone. And thank you all for spending your afternoon or lunch break with us to go over everything that you wanted to know and the 101 on Finestra Pro. So I'm going to try to do this presentation a little bit differently today, and where we're going to go through the PowerPoint presentation and hopefully do a little bit of a hands-on demonstration of Finestra Pro. And I'm going to use a little bit of a workflow process where I'll show you how we can use Finestra Pro in real life situations, starting with schematic design and DD projects as well. So let's go ahead and get started. So first and foremost, why use Revit? Why use Revit? And the reason why I bring this up is before we get into Finestra Pro, we have to ask ourselves, why are we using Revit? Does Revit make cool models? Well, they do, but there's more to that. And it all started here with Francis Bacon. And his saying is, knowledge is his power. This came out in 1597, and the idea of knowledge as power is the key of using Revit. The reason why I brought this up is that information is power. If you don't have the information of your model, then you're missing the big picture, just like you see here in this iceberg, right? So our models that we create in real world scenarios and our buildings has a lot more information behind it. That makes the model smart, and that's why we use Revit. Now, an example of using something that also involves information is FenestraPro. What is FenestraPro? Simply, FenestraPro is a Revit add-on that enables architects and designers to make smarter decisions for a better performing building. Folks, this is the software that's about maximizing passive design and energy savings, and it's all about the information in Revit. FenestraPro allows for 30% and more design facade improvement. It also has real-time compliance checking tools. It enhances green building designs and is an incredible and effective tool for helping guide decisions that have a huge financial impact on the life of a building. This happens to be, I think, one of the most important tools that you can use within Revit. So what does FenestraPro do? First, it starts with the building information model. It gathers the information from the building information model and then geolocates it on the site. It takes into account element and overall thermal performance of the glazing units, and then takes a look at automatically distributing the glazing unit across an entire model. You can get into the glazing specification and then increase it by optimizing shade design. You can do daylighting analysis and then do performance parameters using ASHRAE standards that we would use here in the United States to really hone down the performance of your building. So how is it used? Let's say we take a building like this from simple conceptual design. In conceptual design, we can have this type of model and have our intentions begin in Revit and then jump right into an energy analysis, bringing that model, that mass, right into Revit from a conceptual design, and then using the tools as you see here in the screenshot. So we can start to analyze the building performance right from the beginning. In addition to that, at the end, then after designing projects like this, then you have these incredible buildings. These are actual buildings that I personally really like here in Dallas and some here in my own backyards. And the facade is the key. When we look at our buildings and not only how they perform, but the aesthetics of the design is as important to us as architects and to the clients. And we want to make sure that our building is the best that it possibly can. And FenestraPro allows us to make smarter, more informative designs. Now, you saw me taking a project from conceptual design. FenestraPro can also be used later on in the design process, such as this model that's already in the design development phase. You'll see on the left-hand side, Finestra Pro is a pop-up dialog box that's in the add-ins, and you have the ability to either use a conceptual mass or a detailed model. And what I've chosen in this particular case is a detailed model, and I can either select spatial elements, which will be just the spaces and rooms underneath, or the building elements itself, the envelope and the curtain wall, to analyze. And so you have that flexibility to use it at any stage of the design. So again, as a repeat, what are the benefits of using Finestra Pro? A 30% plus reduction in time and cost of facade work. You maintain this at a control of the design, and you can do early on compliance review from schematic design and design better performing buildings. Now, let's take a look at what makes Finestra Pro different from its competitors. Well, clearly on the left-hand side, you can see Finestra Pro is the first column here, and not only does it take early stages designs, it goes all the way through, most importantly, into the Revit workflow. What's critical here in comparison to our competitor, Safaria, is that Finestra Pro actually works within Revit and writes to the model and pulls information back and forth from the model. You'll see that during our little hands-on presentation. And when you're working on these models, you can take what's called snapshots. These are design tools that will do a snapshot of a design analysis so you can find out what those numbers are throughout your whole building and give that to your engineers. It's facade focused, so it's all about the facade and all the components within it. As I mentioned before, some of these snapshots can be created as Excel and as well as PDF. Now, the next column over where you see Insight 360, Insight 360 is in here, but it's actually not a competitor. Insight 360 works hand in hand with Finestra Pro. Insight 360 allows the user to analyze the building's performance from a cost perspective for that location. Finestra Pro looks at the heating, cooling, and daylight analysis, so they complement each other. Now, who are some of the architects that are currently using Finestra Pro? Well, luckily we have such companies as Gensler and Perkins & Will and SOM here in North America. In Europe, Shepherd Robinson and AECOM and Nordic are just some of the few major companies that are currently using Finestra Pro to analyze their buildings during construction documents, during Revit, and to really make a better, more informed design project. So with that, let's go ahead and I'm going to start a little poll here. So on your screens, you should see a poll, and I'd like to ask everyone, what percentage of projects are you completing 100% using Revit? And you'll see over here we have 0, 25, 50, 75, and 100%. Let me know what percentage of projects are you currently using Revit 100%? And go ahead and click on one of those, and we'll give everyone a few moments to complete that. It looks like we have about 67% so far at 0, and 75% of you or 33% of you are using it. Okay, we got some more numbers coming in. We only have a couple more people who haven't voted yet. So we can give it a moment or two. Okay, let's go ahead and close the poll. It looks like 50% of you have the don't use Revit at all, which is fine. And then the other 25% use it half the time, and the other 25%, 75% of the time. So thank you. So it does look like, you know, pretty much everyone is split down the middle. Either you're using Revit or you're not. For those of you who are currently using Revit, I applaud you. Next, let's go ahead and ask those users who are using Revit, at what stage of the design do you perform energy analysis? And even for those people who are using AutoCAD, if you're performing energy analysis, maybe you have those, you perform energy analysis by a after the CD set is issued, or maybe you don't do them at all. Let's go ahead and see your results. Okay. All right. So it looks like 100% we don't do energy analysis, which is fine. This is something that you'll then be able to understand how you can do, sorry, how you can use FenestraPro to get better results and do energy analysis. Because I have to tell you, one of the things about FenestraPro as an architect, it seemed Greek to me. It seemed very, very foreign, and how to do energy analysis was something that I didn't understand how to do. I figured that's something I have to send to my engineers and let them do. FenestraPro is easy to learn and easy to use. For example, over here, we can apply it to a conceptual mass here in Revit with just a couple clicks. We can basically allow FenestraPro to give us an analysis of our space, and we can apply certain penetrations or fenestrations to our building. What's nice about this is that the amount of fenestrations that are applied to the building is something that we can control. So for example, if we have a facade that we don't want any openings because maybe it's up against another building, or there's a bunch of trees there, or I don't know, something of that nature where you don't want those openings, you can control the aperture or the ability of where these windows or curtain wall systems are placed. You can also allow Revit and FenestraPro to just automatically add these. Now, in this scenario, we've added them to a conceptual design model, all based on ASHRAE. Now, if you were to do energy analysis, actually we can skip this one. If you were to do this poll, if you were to do energy analysis, how much time, how would you rework your facade design? Since everyone really didn't do energy analysis, we'll go ahead and skip this one. The key here is that FenestraPro can be done at any stage of the design. As you saw earlier, we can use energy analysis at the conceptual design phase, as well as the DD phase. In this detailed model, we can allow FenestraPro to analyze the building, and it'll tell us information right then and there. In addition to that, if we have a set of drawings in Revit who's actually gone to, let's say, 50% DD, where you see there's a lot more detailed information in our curtain wall system, you can allow FenestraPro to do an analysis of your building system of the envelope to understand how well it performs or how well it doesn't perform. It gives you real-time feedback information, and you'll see that in just a moment when we get into it. But it's really, really easy to do. Now, what's the process of working within FenestraPro? First, you build a mass in Revit, or I'll show you how we do it in a program called Format 360 Pro. Then you bring it into FenestraPro to establish the amount of glazing. You run an analysis on it, and then basically from there, you can publish it to Insight 360, which is free. It's part of Autodesk subscription, and that way you can analyze your building for cost performance. Then from there, you design the building and start to tweak it and use Revit to detail the facade. And then once again, testing it again in FenestraPro. This gives you full compliance and full ability to read the model throughout all the stages of the design and use a better informative model. Now, let's talk about FenestraPro as its user support. I have to give my hats off to them. It is top of the line user support. On the bottom right-hand side, you'll notice it has a chat window. So at any point in time you log on to FenestraPro, there'll be a technician there that'll be there to answer your questions. It's a nice small company, but it's based on going the extra mile to make sure that you're successful in using their product so that you can get the best design possible. Part of the user interface is tutorial videos. Now, one of the things that's really, really unique about FenestraPro, unlike probably any other application that Autodesk or that we sell, is that if you purchase FenestraPro, Included in the purchase price of FenestraPro is training. Again, let me say that again, because this is something that we don't do typically, but FenestraPro will give you live, hands-on training if you purchase their software. In addition to that, they have online tutorials that help you every step of the way. And if you ever have any questions, their staff is incredibly helpful. So let's talk about those people who, pretty much 100% of you, who don't do energy analysis. So let me talk to you about some of the motivation perspectives of why you would want to use it. So if your owners are requesting you to do energy analysis, this would be a motivation. Also, currently everyone on the call would be able to stand out from your competitors by giving your clients the ability to give real feedback and energy calculations within your grasp, within your means, without having to spend money or use an extra third party. You'll save thousands of dollars on energy performance of the building. Just think of it. After you turn over the building over to the owner, the lifespan of this building, the energy performance of the passive design of the facade is something that'll continually give back to the client or rob the client of a poor performing building. This is something that can set you different than your competitors. Also, the motivation is testing the early designs of your project for passive solar and heating energy analysis. Now, let's talk about some of the barriers. Clearly, if you're using AutoCAD, you cannot use FenestraPro. FenestraPro is a Revit add-in, so it's all about the information. For those of you who are using Revit, this is going to be an add-in that you'll be able to use. For those of you who are still using AutoCAD, take one of my classes and let me get you over to Revit. You won't look back. Now, the other option or the barrier is if your firm mostly does small residential homes. If this is the case, probably FenestraPro might not work. Or, quite frankly, let's say the owner doesn't care about the cost nor the environment, then that would be a barrier. But really, when would that really ever happen? So, in short, what does this software solve? Simply stated, FenestraPro allows users to analyze early on heating and daylighting analysis of your building. It's just that simple. So let's talk about pricing for a moment. So the pricing really isn't that expensive in the big picture. The desktop subscription is $1,200. If you want a network license instead, it's $1,800, and that is per user. So if you have one person using it or two people, you get the idea. Also, the desktop subscription includes free foundation training for what they call nominated users, for those users that are going to be using the project. If you use a network subscription, you have unlimited amount of users that can take our free foundation training for FenestraPro. I have to tell you, this price point is incredibly low for the type of information that you get back and the type of money savings that you would have not only on one project, but many projects for the lifespan. It's a fraction of the cost of what you're investing. So, FenestraPro Premium. So that is what I wanted to show you. So that was a nice quick PowerPoint presentation. If you guys are ready, let me go ahead, roll up my sleeves, and let's dive right into a live demo. So give me just a moment. I'm gonna go ahead and minimize this. Now over here, what you're looking at is Format 360 Pro. What I wanted to do is show you a process workflow on how you can take a conceptual design model from Format 360 or a Conceptual Mass right into Revit and then do an analysis. I'm going to start off by locating my model, my project somewhere over here close to where I live. Let's say it's over here in Miami. And just like that, it drops a pin over here in Miami. I'll go ahead and take the pin and place it over here and say, this is my site. I'm going to go ahead and import it. So something like this, I'll say over here is my site, and I'll go ahead and finish importing it. Now, for those of you for the first time seeing this, this right now is Format 360 Pro, which is what I believe to be SketchUp killer. In other words, instead of using SketchUp, you have the ability to trace and draw right on top of a Google Map image, which allows you to do schematic design at scale, on site, in the correct geographical location. And all this information gets brought into Revit. I'll simply go over here and add a couple levels, and then go back and start to draw an outline with simple shapes. I'll go over here and basically go like here, and here's my site. And back down and take a look at this in 3D. And simple push-pull. And we have our building. From here, I'll go ahead and basically start to go through and use the levels. There we go. And I'll go ahead and save my sketch to my A360 drive and call this Miami. And then I'm going to go ahead and save it locally. Now again, the reason why I'm doing this is I want to show you how easy it is to go ahead and bring in information that you have from a schematic design model to then do energy analysis. All I've done now is gone into Revit, and I'm going to go ahead and open up the architectural template, which is pretty much everyone should be used to using. I'll go over here to my site plan. I'll just go ahead and move these out of the way in anticipation for bringing in my model. And again, this is all about workflow. And I'll bring in my model. And it's upgrading it from 2016. And this is all about workflow process. So over here we have our Conceptual Mass, and simply now all I need to do is run FenestraPro. FenestraPro has two options over here. One is to do a conceptual mass or a detailed model. And what I have here is a conceptual mass that I created from another application, in this case from Format 360. I'll go ahead and click on conceptual mass and then click on the model. Over here, what it's doing is analyze the building. And in just a moment, we'll get a dialog box that'll show us the information about this building. And it's really, really easy to use. Right from the beginning, it pulls in the project name and number, and this information corresponds with the project information within Revit. What's nice, it also brought in exactly where it is on site here in Florida. When I go to the building manager, I can tell it to be a typical office that's only open 5 days. And when I click on calculate solar data, what it's actually going through is gathering real data information from NASA to basically go through and calculate the energy performance of our building. And just like that, it's done. If I click over here, I can see that a new building type has been applied. And now if I want to go through and start to analyze the building for its performance, I say, here's my box. I want to deal with our local ASHRAE codes, and I'm going to set my R value and floor value to be whatever it is. And I'll go ahead and set my maximum to the 28.74, which is allowed by ASHRAE. I'm going to go ahead and set this to maximum and watch what happens to my model. Just like that, it cut openings. This is amazing. Over here, basically what I can do is allow the FenestraPro to cut the openings in my building, and this is an ASHRAE compliant building, and I'm done. How easy was that? From here, I can basically save my model and start to work on this project to understand its energy performance. If I open up the building over here, I can see, for example, my solar load. And if I look at my building manager over here, I'm going to say, you know what, my south facade is really gaining a lot of heat. How can I control that? If I go over here to my facade, let me just go ahead and minimize this real quick and find my south facade. And there it is. That's one of my south facades. I can change the thermal dynamics and the properties of this project simply by going through and changing my glazing, changing the percentage of opening, or I can even put in shading devices. Watch over here in just a moment when I take a look at my solar analysis. For example, it's at 12 and my daylight is at 0.6. It's really, really high on my solar analysis. If I add shading devices, so for example, I'm going to add a 3-foot canopy. Let's change this to 3 foot and recalculate. Look at that, it jumped back down. It's just that smart. And if I look at my model, there are my canopies. This is now a part of my project. And not only is it a graphic representation, it also added to my model. So this is something that I can now start to design and show different horizontal canopies, the percentage of opacity of my frit. I can apply frit to the glazing units. I mean, this is really, really powerful stuff. And I didn't go to school for this. I went to school for architecture, and trying to do thermal analysis was something that was always foreign to me. This makes it very, very easy to use. Really, really nice and easy to use. So over here, let me go ahead and close this project, and let me show you another file that is the beginning of, let's say, a DD phase. So let's say we have a simple little project over here where I have a building. I want to do my energy analysis on this building, and so I'll run the add-in again and go to FenestraPro. Now, over here, I can basically click on a detailed model, and it's starting to read my building elements. And in just a moment or two, we'll see how, again, it brings in the information. It knows exactly where it is in the world. And this time, what I can do is I can still run my energy analysis to see how well my building runs, and basically its performance. Here's my live solar loads, my live data for daylight and savings, daylight information. And over here, what I can start to do is understand how my building is performing as it's designed right now. For example, if I take a look at my south elevation, let's try this one, the west, the one that's closest to us right now. If I were to take a look at our building right now, the way it is, if I take a look at the performance, my solar loads are really, really high along the west, 13.85 BTU. Well, what can I do to basically get a better performing building? Well, right now I can tell that Revit is using a single point type of glazing unit. I just want you all to remember 13.85. And I'm going to go ahead and just minimize this right now, and let's take a look at one of the glazing units. So I'll tab through, I'll select my piece of glass, and let's edit that type of glass. The glazing right here is an 1/8 inch single glazing, so I'll simply just click on this and do something simple like use double glazing. Double glazing is something that is very, very commonly used in most buildings, so I'll go ahead and put double glazing on there, apply that, and it applied it to the entire building model. Of course, I'm using the same curtain wall system, so it's using that system panel throughout. Now, if I go back and take a look at my values, look at that, it went down to 7.96, and it was just that easy. This is information that makes my job easier for allowing the HVAC and the mechanical systems not to be oversized for my building simply by using smart information for the glazing. So folks, I just wanted to show you just a quick demonstration hands-on how you can use Revit and Finestra Pro and Format 360 from conceptual design all the way through something similar to this as a design conceptual model. So with that, I'll go ahead and, are there any questions from the audience? So Go ahead. If you have a question, go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much, Rick. That looked really handy as far as helpful to use. So as Rick was mentioning, if you have any questions, please type those into the question pane, and then Rick will attempt to answer those questions, and I'll help out if I can. Okay, here's a question. A good question. Can it be used on a two-story, can FenestraPro be used on a two-story hospital type of building?
That's a great question. Absolutely. So Finestra Pro, so if you have a two-story building, hospitals are really, really wide, long. I mean, they have a huge footprint. If you think about the thermal properties of a building footprint as a hospital, there's an incredible amount of information that and heat that gets absorbed, let's say, by the roof. The roof material is actually one of those dialog boxes within Finestra Pro that allows you to analyze the building performance as well as the openings in a two-story building. For something like a hospital would be perfect for Finestra Pro. So thank you for asking that question.
Okay, thank you very much, Rick. Amy has a question. Can your software generate energy reports?
Yes, they can. The software report is an Excel spreadsheet that gives real-time data information to those users, so you can easily understand what that looks like. You know what, let me just go over here back to Revit and show you what something like that looks like. So over here, if I go back to my project over here, I can basically save this to Excel. I'll give it a test, Miami, and a test 1, and save the snapshot. Let me go ahead and save this out as Miami test, save, and I'll open up Excel. Computer, whoops, sorry about that. And that's a good question. Here we go. So what you're seeing here is an incredible amount of information that I'm able to generate from my model. And just like this, it gives me information on my surfaces. Now over here, you'll notice the things that are in red are poor performing facade. And if I were to go back, I could adjust the different facades, and I can see in the months of January, February, March, I have a poor performing model. The facade needs to be revised. And then back in September. So my numbers initiate and tell me visually, green is good and red is bad. What Revit and Finestra Pro allows me to do is every time I make a change, it'll create another snapshot and create another tab down here that'll show me additional information on how it changes. Now, these numbers might not mean a lot to you, but for a mechanical engineer and visually you can understand if you have more green, you have a better performing building. So great question.
So we have another question here. It looks like somebody who has a restricted work, but we currently do work for the government. We are not allowed to have any information go out to the cloud. Can your software work within a restricted network?
Actually, it can. One of the things, so the way that Finestra Pro works is it goes out to a web service, actually to their servers in Ireland, to basically go through and number crunch everything and then send it back to us within milliseconds. If you're in a site restricted area where your internet is restricted, you can have that data be installed locally on your server. Just let us know if you decide to go that route, and we'll make sure to install the database locally on your server and have it look to your server.
Okay, that looks like the last question we have. Give you one last moment, all the people out there, to ask any final questions or follow-up questions. Again, do appreciate your time. Rick, do you have any last comments here before I close it out?
Nope, I appreciate everyone's time. I know you're very, very busy, and for those of you who are not using Revit or doing energy analysis, I implore you to try it out. It's really, really easy to use, and again, it's all about the information in BIM.